Now to welcome signs of progress in the battle against coronavirus. Some of the country's earliest hotspots, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, will now fully reopen in a little over 2 weeks, with plans to lift most of their capacity restrictions. That progress comes with a new concern from health experts that the U.S. may never reach herd immunity. More than half of American adults have had at least one dose of a COVID vaccine, but a recent poll shows about 30% of Americans say they won't get vaccinated, making that herd immunity threshold of 70 to 80% much more challenging. Still, President Biden remains hopeful that the U.S. will get there.
I think by the end of the summer, we'll be in a very different position than we are now. My plea to everyone, get vaccinated now, please.
NBC News Now correspondent Isa Gutierrez joins me live. So, Isa, President Biden hopes things will mostly get back to normal by summer, but for some parts of the country, that could come much sooner. What more can you tell us about these reopening plans for New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut?
Good morning, Joe. So May 19th, that's the big date when these three states are going to be reopening many of their businesses fully. So we're talking about restaurants, offices, barbershops, theaters, museums, amusement parks, gyms, and fitness centers. This is, like you said, major news for an area, a region that was the center of the coronavirus pandemic for a while there. Now, in New York City, Governor Cuomo also announced that the subway will be fully reopening as well. Take a listen.
We're going to coordinate the MTA's resumption of 24-hour service with the reopening and immediately with the curfew lift. The curfew lift will apply to restaurants, bars, etc. Especially in Manhattan. Workers are going to need to get back and forth.
About 80,000 city workers in New York City have also already begun to return to their offices. Joe?
Now, Isa, the New York Times is reporting that the FDA plans to authorize the Pfizer vaccine for kids 12 to 15. What's the timeline on that?
Joe, we could see this by early next week, even as early as late this week, according to the New York Times report, which cites federal officials who are familiar with the agency's planning. Now, this is welcome news for the vaccine rollout, but also for many parents who have been concerned and hoping to get their kids vaccinated and protected, especially going into the summer, which we know is a busy season of activities and summer camps for kids, but also going into the new school year in the late summer and early fall. Now, we know, like you mentioned earlier, that many people are still hesitant. Adults are still hesitant to get their COVID shots here in the U.S. So we expect that, many more people, many parents will also be hesitant for their children to get vaccinated, which is something that policymakers who have been pushing for people to get vaccinated so that we can get to that herd immunity. That's a challenge that they'll have to face moving forward as well. Joe?
Anissa, I want to ask you about something the CDC just said. Thousands of COVID vaccines are going to waste. Why is that? Do we know what's behind this?
Joe, so right now we don't know the why behind, the reason this is happening. However, what we do know is that as of late March, so about 3 months into the vaccine rollout here in the U.S., CDC data shows that over 180,000 vaccine doses were wasted, were discarded. Now, the interesting thing about this is that based on this data, we're seeing that CVS pharmacies are responsible for about 50% of these wasted COVID shots. And Walgreens pharmacies are responsible for about 20% of those wasted shots. Now, again, we're not sure why this is the case right now based on the data, but some critics have said that early on in the rollout, the Trump administration relied too heavily on these pharmacies, particularly in their long-term vaccination program. Early on when we were hearing about these pharmacies being involved in the vaccination of, staff and residents in these long long-term care facilities. When asked about this, CVS Pharmacy did say that the majority of these shots that have been wasted, by them in their vaccination processes were during that particular time in the rollout. Haven't heard from Walgreens on this, but that's what we're learning so far. Joe?
All right. Isa Gutierrez, thank you so much.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.